LAWsome by ConsultWebs. Breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm with your host, Tanner Jones.
Hello, all our LAWsome listeners. Today on our show, we're talking with Melissa Lamore, the president of The League. It's a coalition of women uniting all facets of the legal industry, from personal and professional growth to the celebration and the support of women in and throughout the community. Melissa has her Master of Education from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and a BA in both political science and history. She has over 15 years of experience in events and hospitality and more than a decade of experience in business development and project management. Today's topic is around the important conversation of women in the legal field. Welcome, Melissa. Thank you for joining the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's such an important topic, and I'm thankful that there are people like you who are pioneering this in the industry. I think it's safe to say that the legal profession has historically been dominated by men. However, more and more women are now starting to see hopefully more significant strides within the legal profession. And additionally, I'd say that women are increasingly being appointed to more leadership opportunities and positions within law firms, government agencies, even within the court system itself. So, Melissa, from your experience and what you've seen, what would you suggest to our audience are some of the best practices for creating a more inclusive work environment for women within the legal profession?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, right?
That's the loaded question.
That's a loaded question. But I think that really the easiest and quickest way to get started with that, honestly, is collaboration. You know, gone are the days where women have to compete for one seat at the table. There's a whole new generation of women coming into the industry. And just like you said, you know, it's been predominantly men for a long time. But really, if you look at who's running the offices across the country, many of them are women. So a big piece of what we wanted to create with the league, frankly, was not just attorneys in our league, but also paralegals, administrative personnel, law students, vendors. The whole idea here is that we're all working together. If it's one thing that I've learned just from my own personal, career, it's that the more collaboration I have, including with my competitors, the better off we all are, frankly, and the better off our product is, and then therefore the better off all of our clients are. So I just think that we need to shift the mindset away from competition into collaboration and see where we can solve exposures, see where we might be able to work together, see where we might be able to share networks, in order to sort of strengthen each other's, funnel or whatever it is that we're doing, right? I mean, I think that there's just no instance where solid collaboration doesn't benefit everybody.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. In fact, I want to kind of ride on a few of those things that you mentioned there, specifically that the league that you're behind. This concept is not just exclusive to women practicing law specifically. It's for the entire community, any affiliation essentially to the legal community for women specifically, but you also hit on the networking piece. So let's touch on that. How can mentoring and networking help women advance in their legal career based on your experience?
There is no way that I would have the career I have now without having the network that I've been so fortunate to have. Really, the whole creation of the league was literally founded based on that network and that sort of system of support. As women, we look at women as professionals, we look at women as mothers, we look at women in the socio, status of our communities. You cannot deal with any of these issues of inequity or inequality without acknowledging that we are a whole woman. We are wearing many hats, and that it's essential that we have support and systems of support in all of those facets. That's the reason why when we created the league, this isn't just professional development. This isn't just personal development. This is also financial management. I mean, really the whole idea here is to take the whole woman and give her all of these systems and all of these networks to support her in every avenue. You having issues balancing your career and your family life. Let's talk about that. Let's come up with some creative solutions. What works for me? What works for her? What works for, her over here? I think that there's a lot that we can do here just by sharing ideas and sharing best practices. So I think, the network is essential, and that's really fundamentally what we're creating.
Do you know how many cases you're signing from your marketing investment each month? If you want to diagnose the status of your firm's marketing efforts, then the LAWsome podcast has a gift for you. Discover the best and the most unique legal marketing solutions available today using the Decision-Making Handbook's free printable criteria. Claim your copy in the bio below. Well, I know the league is doing an incredible job toward that, and I want to come back to that in a moment, specifically the networking, because I know there are some challenges, both potentially internal challenges that women face, but clearly and obviously external factors. So I'm going to come back to that, but before we do that, it's clear to me that including more and more female workforce is not only a huge step toward improving diversity, obviously, but also helping to elevate a business as a whole. You alluded to this with respect to the majority of law firms out there have female-driven admin staff, even operations managers, many of which are directors running essentially behind-the-scenes operations of a lot of law firms. So we know that is the reality. But I'd like to ask, what have you seen, or maybe through the league, what have you experienced with respect to how law firms that are embracing that and pushing forward well beyond their time, how has that impacted their business, in particular, maybe speaking to profitability or growth?
Good question. Really great question. I mean, the simple and the quickest answer to that, in my opinion, is you're either part of the solution or you are part of the problem, frankly. I mean, and you have to be proactively, actively, intentionally part of the solution. And that solution might work differently in different offices and different law firms across the country, but no question about it that the more progressive we are, the more open to systems of change we are, just look at company culture. Who wants, right now we're living and working in a market where it is difficult to retain any decent talent, right? So how are we making ourselves more attractive? It's not just with money, because we can make money pretty much anywhere now. I mean, the market is changing. So you need to make sure that you are attracting the people that want to work there, and then you're creating an actual work environment, a company culture that makes it welcoming for people to be there. And, to me, there's no question that investing in their personal development, investing in their professional development, investing in their whole person is going to make them feel seen and heard and give them some autonomy in their position. I mean, those are the things that you want as an employee. And those are the things that you want out of an employee when they're in your office. You don't want somebody coming to you constantly for permission. You want them to have the autonomy to make these decisions. And the only way to give them that confidence is giving them enough autonomy to do that, and trusting in them, and giving them enough mentorship to make any, changes or adjustments or corrections that need to as they learn through it. But, there's no question that once somebody feels that in their space, that it contributes to their overall, function and functionality in the office, and how they're doing their work, right? I mean, how happy your employees are directly translate into the product that you're creating, and so you don't want any toxins in there. And I think that that's really critical to just face head on. And again, it's way easier to deal with some of these issues in a proactive way than reactive.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Such valuable advice across the board. And I think it's important to note, at ConsultWebs, we've worked with law firms now for 23 years. And so we know the profession, but we also understand the clientele of these law firms. And I find it so fascinating that the majority of people, general consumers, that reach out to a law firm is almost more commonly a female, a mother, a daughter, a sister, on behalf of the loved one, on behalf of the claimant, that's doing that initial investigation and actually taking initiative to pick up the phone and call these law offices. And I want to stress that fact because all too often business owners, we have blind spots. And if you're not actively being observant to identify those blind spots, and just as you've alluded to, making steps, practical steps forward, whether that's in hiring or in operations, to overcome those blind spots, you are limiting your business growth and your potential to help more clients. And
Absolutely.
knowing that it's almost always the female counterpart of the relationship or the dynamic of the client relationship that's taking initiative, you have a real opportunity to gain invaluable perspective internally from your own law firm in terms of being able to cater to that audience and speak positively to them in a way that ultimately compels them to hire your law office. There are significant benefits to being able to take this very seriously and take the steps, as you've said, to really get past what we've lived through for decades and decades. Would you agree or have any feedback on that piece?
Oh, 100%. And I mean, if I could even, everything that you said, and then I would, there's no question that women are natural connectors, communicators. There's this authentic connection that needs to happen when it comes to our clients, right? They're not familiar with this process, and the whole legal process, and law firms generally are really intimidating to sort of the average person. I mean, even if you're like, no matter where you are in the community, in the society, I mean, we're sort of spoiled because we're surrounded by law firms and attorneys all the time. So maybe we become we become used to the jargon and, the culture, but it's super intimidating for pretty much everybody not in the legal space. So I think really reminding yourself of that and coming back to purpose. What are we doing? Who are we serving? And why? And when that person calls into your firm, they should feel that. Because as soon as they feel like a number or like they don't matter, they are not going to want to give you, to your point, their loved one. They're not going to feel like their loved one is safe in your hands. They're going to feel like just part of this system. And that is fundamentally opposed to who we are as humans. We want that connection and that representation. And when somebody has faith that you as a firm are really representing them and you really have their best interests at heart, they'll probably give you the most slack out of anything, right? I mean, but again, it starts with that initial call. It starts with that very first connection. And I couldn't agree more that I just feel like that's a exposure that doesn't get maybe enough attention.
Every year we make predictions about legal marketing trends that will affect hundreds of thousands of lawyers across the country. If you've been looking to reach new clients, stay informed, or gain a competitive advantage in your market area, this is your opportunity. Unlock the secrets of success with this exclusive PDF that reveals some of the top legal marketing trends in the industry today. Claim your copy in the bio below. This is great, Melissa. Yeah, thank you for that. And so let's keep moving. I wanted to come back to the networking piece. From my stance and what I've observed, the legal profession has clearly come a long way, even just since the time I started in this profession. But I think we both agree there's still a long way to go. But there are some realistic barriers that I believe women are still facing in the profession, one of which is the networking topic, where there's maybe a certain level of intimidation, or maybe there's an uncertainty on the best way to approach this. I'd like you to speak to that, but I'd also like you to speak to any other barriers that you've experienced in the profession.
Let's just look at conferences for a second. Conferences are incredibly intimidating. It is all about networking, but it's really difficult to kind of walk into this sea of suits and not even really know where to start. So I think, first of all, you need to know what your objective is. Why are you going to this conference? And then I think it's helpful if you have a mentor or one contact person, and I'll touch to that in a little bit on how the league will help with that. But, for instance, at National Trial Lawyers in January, we hosted morning walks on the beach every morning, 6 a.m. And, we saw that group start at 5 or 6 women to 10 to 15 women. And over the course of the multiple days, we had women that didn't know one person at the conference that then we're able to make some connections, and then those connections were able to make some introductions. And even if it's just recognizing a face across the bar or across the room or across the happy hour or the dinner or whatever you're at or attending, it just helps give somebody a little bit extra confidence and sort of a home base to just sort of check into. I think that we need to be our own advocates. There's no question that women are constantly telling our family members and our children to speak up for themselves and, know what they want and, go after it. I think women need to follow their own advice sometimes and really take a hard look in the mirror and say, that they know what their superpower is, know what your unique ability is, and don't be afraid to ask for what you want. People don't know how to make connections for you if they don't know who you're trying to connect with. Right? People don't know how to help you get to your goal if they don't know what your goals are. Right? So it's finding that maybe safe space, that person showing up for yourself and showing out, attending those walks, attending the networking happy hours, showing up to the league's connection sessions, reaching out to us at the league, letting us know, in our membership, when you become a member, there's a whole questionnaire about what you need from the league. And if what you need is sort of that starting point, that person to sort of take you in their wing and meet up with you at a conference, meet up with you, before a meeting, we can make that happen for you. But we have to know what you need and what you want, So I think self-advocacy really sort of encompasses the whole thing there. And I think that's, the very first next step that, we should all be taking.
Hiring an outside marketing agency can take your firm's business truly to the next level. But having to compare and contrast different legal vendors out there can be a rather overwhelming and complicated process. So we'd like to help you with that. That's why we've created this free digital vendor checklist. It's going to give you the tools and, more importantly, the confidence needed to truly evaluate and vet the potential vendors out there. It's going to help you understand specifically their legal marketing expertise, team qualifications, what they can and cannot do, types of services they offer, and expectations of those services, proof of success. Have they been there before? Have they helped other similar law firms like yours? And arguably, more importantly, your digital ownership rights related to working with them and what you own or do not own. Claim your free printable checklist in the comments below. So many practical suggestions there that I think our listeners can really take and run with. And it starts with knowing the objective, as you said. I think that's often a missing piece before someone attends these events, is really considering, what is it? What's a goal? What's an objective that I wish to accomplish in going here, and being clear, writing it down. It gives clarity, and it knows, it drives the what and the when on the ask, just as you alluded to. Would you say any other barriers that you would speak to that you think would be worth sharing with our listeners?
Well, it goes without question that there's a whole, one of the things that we talk about at the league is being solutions driven, right? I was really, really careful, and we were all on the board very, very careful when we came together to say, okay, this isn't a session. This isn't an organization where we're going to focus on what are the problems of the past. Mm-hmm. This is, how do we create solutions for the future? Okay, we want more women in speaking opportunities. How do we get them there? How do we know who they are? How do we put them in the line and the right communication and connection to the person who can put them on the stage to speak to those things? We want more women in leadership. How do we get them the skills and the experience that they need in order to qualify for those positions in leadership, and they don't just become sort of a token person, right? And that they are really respected because of that experience. How do we create mentorships that are really fundamentally aligned, where it's, like I said in the beginning, there are law students that, want to become attorneys. There are also paralegals that want to become attorneys. There are also administrative personnel that want to become paralegals. So how are we creating sort of a network within our offices and within our ecosystem saying, hey, where do you want to go? It doesn't mean that it has to be something that we all have to sort of set a hard line to or to create, a real linear path to, but it's sort of, what are the options that you're entertaining and that you are that you're interested in. And then again, being that activist and speaking up and out and saying what you want. So I think that that's, you know, I think that that's, it's hard to say what's the other barriers, because again, I think we all know what a lot of the inequities that exist in our space. And that's voice, and that's positions of power, that's positions of leadership, that's, equity partnerships even. I mean, we really funding, getting more women in those funding positions. I think that there's a lot of barriers here, and the key solution to those barriers, I think, like we said earlier, is the network and also those connections, but also the experience and the mentorship.
Hey there. Perhaps most don't associate lawyers with the social media platform TikTok, but I would encourage you to think again if that's you. The reason being is TikTok is now the #1 most engaging social media platform on the market. It presents truly a lucrative opportunity for lawyers who know how to use it and use it effectively. If you're interested in leveraging TikTok for your law office, grab the free resource in the comments below. Melissa, I want to thank you again for pioneering this. I truly mean that, and I think it's such a critical thing within this profession, but it's also hopefully going to create more awareness, and in that awareness, hopefully there's more intentional effort to be more inclusive within the law office, build a wider diversity within the firm, which is ultimately going to give greater perspective and make a bigger impact within the profession. But before we conclude, I want to end with what I believe is arguably the most important part of this discussion, and that's speaking to potentially prior mentors. You've touched on the value of mentorship and networking, but if we may, let's get personal for a moment. I'd like you to share a success story. Is there a woman that you admire that has made a big impact on you personally, or where you've seen them make a great impact within the legal industry? And would you care to share that example for our listeners?
Oh, yes. I mean, without question, it's Julia Metz. Without question, Julia Metz. I mean, anyone who knows her is to literally love her. You cannot have a conversation with her and not become like an ultra super fan, because she's just dynamic and honest and hilarious, the most incredible speaker, like the most incredible trial attorney. But more importantly than even any of those things, which are all amazing, she's so approachable and just really cares about the evolution and the elevation of the industry and everybody in it. I mean, there is not one person she won't help. I mean, I want to say that, and then she just gets bombarded with with messages and things, but she speaks all the time. And I would say that I would encourage anyone that if you ever see her name on a panel or in a keynote spot, to absolutely attend one of her sessions. She's just so inspiring. I think that as an industry, we look at what motivates us, what gets us to the next benchmark, but something more powerful than all the motivation in the world is to be inspired. And Julia will just inspire you by her essence, right? She cares about the people we're serving. She cares about the attorneys in this space. She cares about real, authentic equity and equality and diversity. She really is just one of those women that's like, you just want her in your corner. She's on our board as well. And she and I work together on all sorts of content-based initiatives. And, she and I work very directly together on the connection sessions as well. And just her experience hosting these webinars and her experience in education with the trial school. And, she's just got such a host of talents, and she's just so generous with all of them that I couldn't have picked another, woman in the legal industry that, I mean, there are so many other women in the legal industry that are just fabulous, but man, Julia's my ride or die.
That's so special. Thank you for being willing to share that. And I would encourage our listeners, you heard that. You can imagine how Julia would take that. We're all encouraged by hearing that feedback, but she in particular would be so encouraged by that. And so embrace that. Find an opportunity to acknowledge someone in the legal profession, a female in particular in the legal profession that has supported you in your own business growth or in your own career, take time to acknowledge it. We all need to hear that. And I think that would make a big impact toward doing exactly what you're here to do, Melissa, which is just building awareness around this and ensuring that we're making progress and not stepping backwards. So thank you again for doing this interview with LAWsome. Is there anything, and just as you wrap up here, Melissa, anything in particular that maybe I didn't ask that you would have wished I would have?
Not really, other than I would say that, we need to follow this up with a call to action for all of the listeners. And this isn't just for you listening. This is for anyone in your office. This is anyone in your firm or in your company, anyone that you know that's in law school. The league works the broader the network gets and the more people we can help. That's literally how the web, becomes strongest, right? So you must get to the website, theleague.law. You must join. It's a donation-based membership at this point. And, we really encourage you to reach out and let us know how we can help you, how we can help your offices, how we can help your colleagues. And, as we're building this, we're tailoring it to what our members need very specifically. And we can't do that unless we know what you need and you reach out, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing here. The biggest responsibility that we all have is to show up and then let us know if you have something specific that you can offer or share to the league. If you already have a women's organization that you're organizing or that you're working with within the industry, we want to support you. We want to be part of every women's organization in this industry. And they're all part of the league. So I think that's a really big point that I definitely also want to make, because everybody has sort of their specific focuses, right? And what they're doing for their individual, groups of women in our community. And the league wants to support all of them, literally all of them. So if you have an event, let us know, let us support you. If you're having a conference, let us know, let us support you. If you're having a webinar, let us know, let us support you. If you're having an in-person anything, let us know and let us support you, because that's what we're here for.
Thanks again, Melissa. Thoroughly enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you.
LAWsome by ConsultWebs with Tanner Jones. For show notes, links, and info, go to consultwebs.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Watch for the next LAWsome episode to discover more breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm.